Dan Marsden, you are ex-director of Savills. Now you help agents and businesses grow their businesses. You are very vociferous on social media with your comments. And one of the things that you mentioned recently was you just detest moaning estate agents. Talk to me.
I detest moaning generally. I think with the whole online debate that's been happening over the last few months, years even.
2014.
Yeah, okay, well, even longer than I thought. I think there's been far too much moaning about their presence in the market and what it means for their business and all these other things. And I think at some point you've just got to stop and maybe use the energy that you're about to use to moan about the online agents and say, do you know what, I need to maybe take a step back and look at our own business. Is our own house in order? And I think for the most part, if people are really honest, it's probably not. And I don't think this sort of knee-jerk sort of either to moan about it or to make knee-jerk changes to your own business without really thinking it through is the way forwards. And it just seemed to be filled my timeline with people moaning about their presence. Well, don't worry about what they're doing. Worry about what you're doing.
But surely, I mean, a lot of people accused Purplebricks of misleading people with the no fee bit, where you obviously had to pay a fee. Surely it's their responsibility to highlight these things, isn't it?
If that were the only thing we're moaning about, I would totally understand that, because I don't disagree. If you are misleading the market, of course it's wrong. Of course people should talk about it. If you're just making those comments and they're kind of just disguising actually what you really want to say is, I don't like the fact these guys have come into my market and disrupted it. And disruption is a word I don't tend to use much, but that's effectively what they did. And to a degree, fair play to people like Purplebricks who did shake it up, who did say, do you know what, we're going to look at this slightly differently. And of course, the business is constantly evolving. Yesterday's online business is today's self-employed, is next year's something else. And the people that have just remained as a traditional high street agent will always have cause to moan about something if they're not doing it.
Okay, the current moaning topic at the moment is the portals. Talk to me about that.
I don't think it's the portals people are moaning about. I think it's one particular very popular portal.
Oh, we'd be talking about the Rightmove here. I can say this. You possibly don't want to.
Well, I can say. I can say what I want, Chris.
Of course you can.
Rightmove are a problem for people, and they're a problem for people.
They're a solution as well, aren't they?
This is what I'm going to say. I mean, the fact is they're only a problem because they're expensive. The fact is they do what they say on the tin. They're plug and play. They're easy. It's a lazy way to market. And because they're an easy way to market property, and they enjoy a success rate because people go there in their floods, they can ramp their fees.
Do you know in Australia the Rightmove equivalent, an office pays on average £17,400 per month?
I didn't know that.
That's not dollars.
That's pounds.
That's pounds.
Right.
Okay. And I've had the head of the REA on the sofa and challenged, and I said, well, surely I've actually had an agent who runs 45 offices. Well, it's all vendor paid advertising. It's not all vendor paid advertising.
But it doesn't matter, Chris. If I pay £1 for something but I'm making £100 back,
okay,
it's irrelevant what it costs you.
So is it fair that Rightmove have put their prices up more than inflation, or is that totally irrelevant?
I think fairness is irrelevant in business. I think it's a, for people that say, look, they've got a monopoly, I kind of have to do this. Like I say, I come back to what I said. I think it's a lazy approach to take.
Do they have a monopoly though?
They don't have a monopoly if there are other options available.
Well, there are other options, aren't there?
Then they don't have a monopoly. A monopoly is something, if you literally can't conduct business without Rightmove, literally can't conduct business, it's a means to doing something.
So all it is just you whack your properties on and it finds buyers. You haven't got to get off your backside and do any work.
And because it's expensive, that's why it's a problem. It's not a problem for Rightmove. I think what Rightmove have maybe not done, and I watched the video with your guy from Australia, is I don't think they've been open enough in bringing senior people to the table, maybe to discuss those those concerns. Back in the day when On the Market was created, I was working for a large household name who was instrumental in bringing on the market. And that was the last time I really saw the industry kicking back against the dominance of Rightmove, and it did, because...
Okay, but I tell you here and now, we're talking about on the market there. I believe that they are just as bad as Rightmove in terms of their lack of empathy. I'm not hearing good things at the moment about them.
And I think if you can criticise any company for anything, that's something you could definitely direct your anger towards. I don't think the fees on their own is something you can just say, look, they're expensive. Okay. Well, yes, they're expensive, but what is expensive? Like I say, if you're spending 17 grand a month on something, but you're making 100 grand a month as a result of doing that, it's not expensive, it's an investment. It's part of the business cost. If you're spending progressively more and more and more, well, it becomes unviable to use that tool because it's too expensive, then think about something else.
It's interesting that agents judge and moan about the portal's return on investment by the number of leads it gets.
Well, look,
when in reality the purpose of the portal is surely to put the property in front of the punters,
totally.
not get landlord and vendor leads.
No, I think at the end of the day, I think you've got to, as a business, assess what works, and I think this is where a lot of, when I say agents, this is businesses totally, but we're talking about the property industry. The one thing that people get wrong, they don't look at one of the major things you've got to look at as a business, and this applies to marketing as much as anything. You've got to look at measuring the results of what you're doing. So if I'm spending £1,000 on something, if you're not measuring how that has worked out for you, that £1,000 spend, then you deserve what you get from that, because I think that's just chucking money away.
Yet at the same time, there's plenty of people that do measure stuff, and that because it doesn't bring back instant results, they drop it.
Well, that's a knee-jerk reaction that you can have. I mean, I think to do that is a mistake. I think you need to run these things over a period of time. There are people out there, let's be honest, who will stop doing certain things in marketing because the bloke down the road is not working for them. I think you've got to always look at your own business and make those decisions on the impact of that.
Okay, and so therefore, what's your top tips for basically, if an agent was moaning to you, and basically you could slap them around the face and say, get a fucking grip of yourself,
yeah,
what would it be? Tell the people at home. Well, tell me, and I'll tell them.
I have zero tolerance for moaning. Okay, I've got zero tolerance for that sort of attitude to things, and I think if all you're going to do is bitch and moan, you're never going to get yourself out of that position. I think what you've got to do is be realistic about what you want to achieve, and if you're a business owner, you've got to set that target ahead. I think most people that I talk to, they don't. They have a vague plan, they scrabble about, they flounder, and then they come back and say, Christ, we haven't done what we were supposed to do. A proper business, and I think this is different for everybody, but there's certain fundamentals in a business. I think if you say, right, this year I want to make £1 million, I want to make 750, whatever you want to make, set that and work backwards and understand what you have to do to get there. Most businesses start at zero, they don't know what that number is in the first place, they get told to do a number of things, they do it, it doesn't work, they panic and just waste time and energy. So for me, I think if you're running a business and you've employed some proper people, then sit down with those people and say, right, this is where we want to be, this is, I think, how we've got to get there, and execute that, and all along the way, just measure how you go. I think a lot of businesses are guilty of not doing that, and they're just so desperate to sell their services, they get involved in this melee, and they get 6 months down the line, and they're like, Christ, we've done 6 months, and we don't actually know where we are. That's where the panic comes from. And I think, and I'm being very generalistic here, of course, and because there are some amazing businesses out there who run a very tight P&L, they run a very tight ship, they've got all the systems in place, they've recruited well, and their systems, and again, I guess systems is an entirely different topic, but if you haven't got systems in your business, you're finished anyway. That's kind of it. So my top tips, I think, for people to get this, if we're talking about social media, I think you've got to be focused and targeted, but you've got to measure those efforts. And if it doesn't work, bin it. Don't get precious about it. If LinkedIn's not working for you, sack it. If Facebook's not working, you've poured tons of money into Facebook ads. Either you've taken bad advice and you're doing it wrong.
Don't judge the platform, judge what you're doing to it.
Absolutely right. And the great thing about these platforms is they all give you very effective tools to measure the success of those campaigns.
Okay, what other tips to stop agents moaning and focus on themselves, not the business? Is it it's got to be mindset, hasn't it?
It is entirely mindset, and I think
is it like is it being accountable to someone else?
Accountability is massive, and I think that's not just top down. I mean, that has to work right the way through an organisation. It's not just the leader of that business saying, I'm going to hold you all accountable.
And what about self-awareness of where you are and where your strengths and weaknesses are? Because it's a lonely old game running your own business, isn't it?
It is a lonely old game, and I think that's where the power of it. I think if you are self-employed or if you're sort of out there doing your own thing, I think you would very quickly realise how strong your network is. I think it's a bit of an eye-opener for people. You know, the tide's gone out, the pants are down. It's like, right, okay, how many people do I actually know? How good are those relationships? Can I monetize those relationships, or do I just know a load of people that don't care about my business and can't help me? I think that's going to be something that will come up more and more probably over the next 6-12 months with the whole question of self-employment.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the next video, should we talk about self-employed?
I'd like that.
Thank you.